Hey, 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 Laura J out on my throne in my outdoor office at the front of the house. I've been over at the side this year instead, but it is hot enough to be out here, so I am ahead of the game. But I'm actually just kidding. What I wanted to make a video about is far more serious. So I could either get into character or realize I already am the character that you see when you watch me, and the same is true for everyone else you watch and view too. So, with all that being said, I have a friend who is dealing with a family member who is literally destroying their home, has forced everyone else in the unit out of the home due to volatility and just evil generally, trying to keep them up, breaking things, threats, physical harassment. It's really unacceptable. And basically, the one who is causing the problem is not willing to own up to their need to find identity outside of the family where they're stealing power. And then the family are basically paying for this grown child to do their best to create an identity without being involved in anything outside of themselves socially, because that would interfere with their identity as unsure. Therefore, keep everyone at a distance in order to make sure no one realizes that I'm really insecure. Inner security is where we feel safe wherever we are, regardless, because we know we have a sense of home that's accessible emotionally, regardless of what's going on the outside. Insecurity is where we're picking up our sense of safety from our environment, and when we're not getting the responses we need to feel safe reflected back to us, we feel insecure. Inner security is an expression that's externalized, whereas insecurity is a fear that is using an outside influence in order to gain self perception. I say all of this because my friends really need help, because the system won't help the one that doesn't want to help themselves, because the bully is presently gaining power from many places by having problems, such as the currency of woundology, that can also get expressed in dysfunctional ways as the bully as well. We're seeing it on the public front within the corporate sector, but we're also seeing it in individual cases, like I just touched on, with anonymity, because I don't believe that this is an isolated situation. I believe that we're just not hearing about this because no one wants to talk about this, and furthermore, most families will not actually tolerate this bad behavior for as long as what these ones have. Hence, the problem has grown to a level where it's very concerning. I ask if there is a resource available for people like this that need to be removed and need to be given a task, an obligation, duties, responsibilities, where they can form their own identity outside of where they grew up. No bird is meant to stay in the nest forever. The baby bird has to leave the nest, or it will starve because the parents stop coming back to feed them in the nest. And if the baby doesn't grow wings to be able to actually soar to freedom and by default life, that baby is going to get stuck in a nest they're really comfortable in all the way till death. And that is not what we came here for. That is not what this individual within a family unit is here for. Nor the family specifically, though there's karma that we don't understand playing out in this situation. And my involvement with members of the family mean that I have been seeing this from the sidelines for longer than I care to admit, because without being able to offer a solution you really don't have anything to contribute other than advice that adds vice to an already tense situation, or judgments that have already been passed on many levels by each of those already involved. So, how is that helpful? Neither. The question is, how do we as a society, as a collective, come together to create spaces where people that are going to be thrown out because of their unreasonability are given an opportunity to be part of a community of misfits who fit together? We don't want to change. None of us do. It's not comfortable changing. Growing pains hurt. Transformation is not an easy task or ask, because life as we know it stops, and life as we will know it is not yet familiar to us. So everything feels scary. And we feel very vulnerable when everything is scary. We feel very insecure unless we have developed a sense of inner security, which is what we have a chance to do as peaceful inner warriors united, who support one another to be able to create opportunities where those who are suffering, as those I call friends are, can reach out and connect without it being part of a system that has professionals caring only to a point, because that's the nature of the corporation. We have to see that we are the community members who are witnessing other members of the community who are friends and family and loved ones. We are witnessing their struggles, and the system is not able to help or support them. And so we must. We must come up with a solution. And if there already is one, please thrust it my way informationally. Let me know what's available. The law is involved in terms of, because of the circumstances. So there is that already part of it. But at the same time, getting a record and the stigma that goes with it, that would label someone to be how they're acting for the rest of their life from their lowest state to date, is very unfair. And I believe that we need to see the Mental Health Act is a trap. It's a holding pattern for people who are not understood. And then there are also the people whose inner child is reflecting their desire to be provided for and to not have to worry about their own survival, because mama's going to come back to the nest and feed me, right? Says the little baby bird. Well, yes, until no. So this is where we've got to go, I believe, because it's in my microcosmic experience, which means it's in the macro too. And I know if I know one family who is dealing with this, there must be others who are also struggling without knowing how to actually help. The moment abuse is introduced, contracts are severed. There is no continuation once abuse is introduced. That's a usufruct that has become imperfect. A usufruct is the ability for someone else to use someone's thing, including a person, which is a thing we all have, that's a paper version of what's real. The paper version of what's real. I lost my train of thought. The cat moved. Energy changed. So I'm not perfect by any means. The imperfect usufruct was what I was going to talk about, which basically is when abuses, which is abuse, gets introduced into the equation of using someone else's property, that's usus, and then profiting off of someone else's property, which is fructus, to then step into abuses, which is the ability to destroy, decimate, or disturb that which is someone else's to any point, because of capitis diminutio maxima, where you are and trapped and enslaved, like the Falun Gong people, whose organs are being harvested right, left, and center in China, for instance, because they're held in reprogramming centers, and their lifestyle means their organs are of high quality for people on the black market to purchase from a living being who is then murdered in order for the organ to be extracted and inserted into the one who wanted something better than what they originally had for health reasons, but also sometimes vanity. I don't get it. I do. Survival is what we're all here to do. And this has went into a different area too. But it's connected because we can't have such atrocities as what the Falun Gong people have been experiencing for decades now, and then also have a family like what my friends are facing, where they have been evicted from their own home because an immature member of the family has become a danger, threat, and demon within the family unit that cannot be bullied or persecuted or judged as all of himself or herself. If the circumstances relevant to you apply what would fit there. But we can't look at how this individual is acting and say that is who they are. We have to recognize this behavior is an expression of energy and motion that was trapped and now is not, and it has literally grown into a monster. But if someone is left to their own devices, literally it being electronic or their own emotions they don't know how to process, those negative default is something else's or someone else's outside of me because it's not me, I'm perfect, right? No. We have to see how our identity is so wrapped up in our behavior. We have taken on labels, statuses, and personages that would have us be the thing we used to do when we, the subject, did something using a verb. But when that verb gets converted into a status that sounds like the thing that is done, there are expectations that come with that conversion we don't notice until we do. So, I hope this is useful to you, and genuinely, I hope it's useful to me and the family I mentioned, because if you know of any solutions, resources in the community here in Ontario where people who are so troubled can actually go to be rehabilitated, then please let me know where that would be and how to actually get into it. So lay it all out in an easy to follow manner for my friends, and then by default anyone else who I can send it to, because that will do wonders for a family who are suffering in silence and don't know where to turn. I would love and appreciate your leaving a comment on this video to let me know what it means to you and for you, and what we're going to do with this message, you specifically, for that is the only thing you are responsible for. And when there are fingers pointed to you, there are also fingers pointed back to me. So do see that you are you and I am me, and together we are a first person pronoun that is able to actually create instead of react as the third person or party in a situation that has an agent in between us and what we actually are. We need to maintain the office of man or woman, which is the first person pronoun, per office, that is the highest within the legal system. And then the second person is the agent of you, who could be anyone, for it's not specific. And they, them, theirs, it, he, she, they, hers, his, those versions of pronouns are third person which is literally a character in a story, but not my specific story. So there is a big difference. And right now, what I see are people like the one who inspired me to make this message are desperate for help and yet terrified to get it, and are shutting down their nervous system before they can even wet it. And so we need to make the ink flow without going into contracted states to do it, yo. And so that means if there is not available that which I have asked for here, I ask, how do we create it? Who do we need to get involved in order to create such a thing? And how do we come together as a community in order to do what is required so that we can be the ones we were waiting for before we realized we're it already?